Thanks for the intro, Purnima. So I'm Ellie Powers. I lead product management for apps on Google Play, and I'm really excited to talk to you about how to be more successful. Ever since I joined Google, this has been a topic that I'm hugely passionate about helping developers grow new and exciting businesses. So why are we really here? What is it that we're trying to do? You know, many of us have an idea or a business that we're trying to get out into the world and that we're trying to make more successful. And these days, the best way to reach people globally is through building apps, especially apps on Google Play. And Michael just talked about how big that opportunity is. It's really huge. And so I want to talk with you about how to make those dreams into a reality of successful businesses, great user experiences, and a way to truly reach people and help them make their lives more successful as well. So one of the themes that Michael touched on was how your success depends a lot on the quality of your application. A great app has to be functional. It has to provide value to a user's life. It has to solve a real problem they have, make their day a little bit more fun, or things like that. But on top of that, the app itself has to be excellent. And we find that users have very high expectations for apps on Play. So today what we're going to do is walk through the entire app development lifecycle and talk about how you can bring quality and success at every step of the way. So first, we're going to start by talking about design. And what we've seen from users on Google Play is that they have very, very high expectations for how apps are going to look and behave on their devices. And we hear back from developers that the time they spend on optimizing design pays off many, many times over. And now with material design, we're seeing that Google's really becoming a leader in thinking about how to create great, delightful, and engaging experiences across multiple types of devices. So let's get started by digging deeper into material design. So what is it anyway? It certainly looks cool, but there's something much deeper to it. It's really about defining the characteristics of how a UI should feel, move, and adapt to a user. We provide design patterns for how to implement this, and we try to make this easier by baking in best practices for building great touch UIs. Another theme you'll see coming up a lot is how to use motion, but not just for fun, although for that, but also to provide comprehension, and really going a step beyond more static web pages into something where a user can interact and understand more deeply. One of the last things you'll notice is that we can use beautiful aesthetics to not only delight users, but to also help designs adapt across screens. So if you're interested about this, I definitely recommend that you go to developer.android.com/design, and there's a bunch of materials there, and soon to be more and more coming about how you can start applying this thinking and some technical concepts to your apps. So before we dig into the details of material design, let's talk a little bit about what the benefits are. So first of all, material design is great for expressing your brand. Material design emphasizes a great use of color and provides UI patterns that are sufficiently flexible so that you can build experiences that feel authentic to your users and the design that you might have already across your web, print, or other products. Next, material design is really an opportunity to delight. You know, it provides great consistency with the Android experience so that when a user is using their device and using your app as part of it, it really seems to fit in. And it also provides a very strong cross-platform experience so that as a user experiences your device on an Android tablet, their phone, a website, it's really a great experience and they don't feel like they're starting over again every time. And there's a real opportunity for developers here who want to be early adopters. We're offering a new collection called the Beautiful Design Collection. And if you're able to start investing early in material design, there's a great opportunity here to get noticed and be seen as a leader. And eventually material design will become a requirement to get featured on Google Play. Okay, so we're going to take a look at one app that's using material design. We're going to walk through every step of what they've done. All right, so you can see the old app versus the new app here, and we're going to walk through how they made each of the changes. All right, so here's the old app. They switched the buddy icons to the nice circular version. They added key lines here, lots of white space. It feels a lot more nicely laid out. A bright prop of color at the top makes it look really beautiful and brings out the new Compose button. You can see a big difference here. And then this new design will scale easily to the tablet layout. Okay, let's take a look at a second example. So one of the tenets of material design is to focus on content. So here you can see the use of album and artist imagery. It's a much more visual, graphic, compelling version than the smaller image on the left, which was the previous design. We're also making a much bolder use of color. You can see here the bright yellow that comes from the album art is drawing your eye. And we're using a delightful use of motion here, not only to make it feel more fun and interactive, but also to explain, as you kind of dive into one album or pull back out of it, how that one album relates to the rest of the items in your collection. Next, let's take a look at the Play Store. So we can see here that the Play Store is also starting to adopt material design principles. And one detail I did want to mention is material design isn't just for Elle. It also works for pre-Elle devices too. So you can provide a consistent experience for all of your users. Here the Play Store is using a bold graphic across the top of the page. Many of you who've already gone to the developer console to update your store listing have made sure that you're using that bold feature graphic. It does a great job of expressing the brand and feeling of the application. We've also cleaned up the layout a bunch and added a nice white background with lots of white space so it doesn't feel as cluttered. And then in the center, we have a bunch of bold, brightly colored geometric icons that draw the eye as well. So now we're going to talk about 4 different concepts within material design so that you can start thinking about how to apply them to your apps. So we're going to talk about tangible surfaces, meaningful and delightful motion, bold and beautiful aesthetics, and adaptive design. And remember, these can be done in Elle, of course, as we all know, but also on pre-Elle devices. There are some new capabilities that are coming up in Elle that make motion a lot easier to implement. Okay, so tangible surfaces. The idea here is to use different surfaces and shadows and think about how your app, if it were a physical object, would actually look and behave. And the way that something looks in material design should make it easier for the user to be able to figure out how the user should interact with it and how it will respond to them. Now, these uses of different surfaces can be very valuable to separate the content, which again in material design we want to take the focus, from the navigation, which should be present but not dominating. We want to focus the user's attention on the most important parts of the screen. And the white framing that we use so commonly in the material design layouts makes it easier to allow the content to shine and also just make the page look a lot neater. Okay, the second concept in material design here is the bold and beautiful aesthetic. So again, content is at the center, and we love content that is bold, graphic, and feels very intentionally placed on the page. A lot of material design examples you'll see as well will have one primary color and then also an accent color. And we can see the content providing color like the pink heart in this album art here too. The use of typography is particularly important in material design. You can use the fonts that match best with your brand and give the right feeling. And you want to think about how the fonts fit together as well with the iconography. We like geometric icons in material design. Now, one of my favorite things about material design is this concept of meaningful and delightful motion. Everyone wants technology to be fun. We all have our favorite experiences from when we picked up a new gadget and it just did something that was fun, delighted us, and made us laugh. On the developer console, when you upload new things, you get a little robot icon that starts moving, and we've gotten a lot of good feedback about that. But motion can be so much more meaningful than that. When people start using interfaces, we want to make it really clear about how one part of the interface relates to the next. And that's what material design can do with motion. So when the material design interface responds to the user's touch with motion, it gives that cue and that response. And it draws the eye naturally because we know that motion is really great for drawing the user's focus. But you don't want to go overboard with motion. The user's action should be the thing that initiates the motion, and also the motion should be fast and precise so that they don't distract from the interface. Okay, so if we look at the material design principles, there's one part I think that sums it up pretty well about what we're trying to do with adaptive design. So the idea here is that a single underlying design system should organize interactions and space, and every device should reflect a different view of the same underlying system. So the idea here is that, for example, as you can see here, this is about user's calendar. And so there's a singular source of calendar data from a technical perspective. But also visually, the idea is that there's sort of a system of rules for how you display that calendar information. And when you look at each device and what should be surfaced there, you should think about what information and what presentation is most relevant and specific to that device. And then you can use material design visual elements to create continuity. And the margins and the key lines may change a bit from device to device, but it should feel consistent and predictable. So that way, if the user starts using your app on a new device, maybe they get an Android Wear watch, they already pretty much have a good sense of how it should behave and what it's able to do for them, although the watch will certainly show a different view of information than maybe their laptop computer, their phone, or their tablet might have. Okay, so that's material design. Now let's go on and talk about how this applies to certain types of devices and what other design concerns you should think about when you're trying to build high-quality apps across devices. So, last year, we started a program called Designed for Tablets. And now we're seeing that the vast majority of our top apps already meet all these Designed for Tablets criteria. And this is fantastic because Android tablets are selling so well, and we want to make sure that every user has a great experience with every app that they use on their tablet. So the idea of a tablet is really interesting, and many developers, when tablets first came out, thought it was just a small phone. But it's so much more than that. When you have a tablet, you don't just have more space, but you have people using your app in different ways. So a common thing that we'll hear from developers is that people will use their phone for they called it snacking, frequently going and getting a little bit of information, doing one small short task. But with the tablet, it's not like a snack, it's more like a meal. People will sit down with their tablet and interact much more deeply. So in addition to thinking about what type of visual layout you want to have, and you can use fragments to build flexible UIs that adapt very easily across different device sizes, you also want to think about what functionality you should offer for the best experience. So then, when you think that you've designed a great tablet app, you want to make sure that you upload it to the Google Play Developer Console and that you check the Design for Tablets checklist to make sure it's met all the criteria. And the reason why this is important is that if you want your app to be fully visible and incredibly prominent on Google Play, it needs to make sure that it meets all these criteria. If you're browsing apps on your tablet and you go to the top charts, the ones that you'll see by default are the ones that meet the Design for Tablets criteria. And so you want to make sure that your app is going to be visible there. So if you check the checklist, you'll know what to do. Another great thing to do is you want to explain to the user exactly how the app will work on their device. And a picture is worth 1,000 words, so that's why we give you the opportunity to upload 7-inch and 10-inch tablet screenshots in the developer console. So that way, when someone browses your app in Google Play on a tablet, they'll see the screenshots that really represent how your app is going to look on their device and any tablet-specific layouts and features that you have. So if you want to then start thinking about how to go above and beyond the basic criteria, I definitely recommend that you go to developer.android.com and check out our tablet quality checklist for some more explanations about how to have a truly great Android app on tablets. Okay, so next we're going to talk more about Android Wear. So if you're not sure how to get started, the most important thing to think about first is there's actually 3 possible ways that your app can adapt to Android Wear. First of all, step 1, there's the no work option. Notifications will just show up automatically. Step 2, you can spend a bit more work to enhance these notifications. Or step 3, you have the option of building a much more complex application. We're going to walk through all 3 of these. So first, the most basic thing to know is if your app creates notifications, they'll automatically just start showing up by default on someone's Android Wear device. You'll probably want to check it out just to be sure that you're happy with the experience, but this shouldn't imply any extra work for you as long as you're using standard notifications. So second is the idea of enhancing these notifications. And this is a really great option to consider because usually it'll take maybe 10 lines of code or so, but then you can make an experience that gives really big benefits. So there's a couple of cool things you can do here. By default, if you have a messaging app, those notifications with new messages will show up on the Wear device. But it's really easy to add a voice reply so that the user can respond directly from their Wear device without having to unlock their phone and take it out of their pocket. There are also other ways to format the enhanced notifications like pages and stacking that might be worth looking into depending on what type of app you have. So for those of you who are really looking to be innovators and to push into new areas, I want to give you a couple tips for building a full Wear app. So on the left, we have kind of the default software development schedule that most of us think that we're going to have. So for example, we think we'll spend a little bit of time on design, we'll build the thing, and then we'll spend a little bit of time debugging it. But what usually ends up happening is We need more design time than we thought, and the debugging process isn't so speedy. Now, specifically for Android Wear applications, the recommendation that we're seeing based on some of our earliest access partners is you're going to probably think about 25% of your time for UX iteration. And so why is that? You know, the old rules don't apply in Android Wear. A lot of us have experience building web pages, probably apps for the phone, maybe apps for the tablet as well, but Android Wear is totally new and a different interaction modality may be necessary. So if you put in the time and you spend time iterating, it can be really fun to explore and you can end up with something that's amazing. And if someone is carrying your app around on their wrist 24/7, that's a really unique opportunity and I think it warrants the investment. Okay, now we're going to talk more about Android TV and how to build great apps. So the types of apps that we see as being most promising in the living room are games and media apps. And the way to think about the TV is this, right? This is not like putting a gigantic computer in your living room. It's not even like putting a gigantic mobile phone or a tablet in your living room. It's really a different experience. The user wants to lean back, sit on the sofa, and be entertained. So put content at the center. And secondly, you want to create something that's immersive. So go ahead and use movement, sound, and visual imagery to create something that, you know, has a truly cinematic experience if you can. And perhaps most importantly, we definitely recommend that you simplify. If a person's using a remote control to interact and they just want to sit down and put on their favorite program, you don't want to send them through menu after menu. You just want to put the fewest screens and least friction between the user and the content that they want to engage with. So we offer you some lean back themes and other TV optimized layouts to try to make building a TV app as easy as possible. And if you're interested, we actually have a program where you can go online to developer.android.com/TV and request an ADT1 developer kit. This will help you get started and actually test your TV app on something real. Okay, so we talked about how design is the great first building block for having a high quality and successful app. So now we're going to talk about how to take this same idea of quality and to bring it through next to the development process. Okay, so Michael mentioned earlier the Android L release. You know, we have material design, the most new APIs of any release, and a bunch of cool user features like better task switching, faster app run times, and so forth. I'm really excited about the improved battery life and also how it's designed to help handle flaky network connections. So those of us who tend to get dropped calls are going to have a better experience. So I want to walk through just a couple things that you should think about when you're thinking about how to have a high quality, engaging, successful experience on L. And the first one is notifications. So immediately what you'll notice about what's different for notifications in L is the background color. It used to be black, now they have a white color. And you actually get to change the little blue dot color there that appears next to each of your notifications. So if you want to express your brand there and capitalize on your material design layout, this is a great place to pick it. The second thing that you should know about and check in your app is that we're allowing users to modify all of their global notification settings through the Android settings app. So just make sure that you add a notifications flag to the manifest, so make sure that your app will appear there in the settings so that users can go there to adjust notifications for your app from the central location. And then finally, one really cool thing that we're doing is we're starting to show notifications on the lock screen. So as we all know, once a user installs your app, that's cool, but you want to keep them engaged over time. And the lock screen is a new area to bring up things that are very critical and a user needs to notice. And you also want to be really sensitive here too. You know, if a user has, let's say, a messaging app on their phone, and you receive a new message and you're going to show it to them, they may not want to see the contents of that message on their lock screen, right? Someone else might pick up their phone and go, well, that's very interesting. So you need to think about what sort of private, public, and secret views you want to have of different notifications to make sure that if things are showing up on the lock screen, it's meeting the user's expectations and still being helpful. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about how we can take care of the Android One opportunity and make the most of the opportunity for emerging markets. So one of the key things that we hear again and again about emerging markets is that data plans are expensive and only lower-end smartphones may be available. So these are the devices that you're going to be dealing with. And what we find for most developers who invest in those areas is once they learn how to build their apps right, they actually get massive benefits today, and we forecast only greater and greater growth tomorrow there. So let's talk about a couple of things you can do to optimize your app. So first of all, for the network, just assume that your user is going to be on 2G only. And so what does this mean? Longer latency, slower loading times. So you'll want to make sure that you don't just try to load the data and time out after 10 seconds. You might need to assume that some of those attempts to load data aren't going to work. Make sure that the user is messaged when data is or isn't loading, and make sure that your application doesn't have dependencies on having consistent, continuous network connection. Second, optimizing for lower memory on lower end devices is really important, and again will pay off hugely. So in Android Studio, we have a new function called Memory Monitor, and this can help you understand the memory profile of your app and identify areas to improve it. And third, the thing that I can't say enough is just to test. We offer an emulator. Some people use physical devices as well, and this allows you to do those memory and network simulations. So if you have a physical device and you're trying to test there, try switching off Wi-Fi, setting your device to use only 2G, and try to simulate the connections that your users will see. And if you think this is really exciting, because I definitely do, we have a recent post from Sundar Pichai on our official Android blog talking about some of the opportunities here for developers, and I definitely recommend that you check it out. Okay, so if there are any software developers here, we hope that you're trying out the new Android Studio beta. And if you're not, I wanted to highlight a couple of the key features that we've released recently. We've talked a ton about how one of the big pushes right now is around supporting for new device types and what the new opportunities are to be early adopters. And Android Studio Beta can really help you with that. They provide a bunch of templates and other support, so it's not that hard to take an existing phone app and to figure out how to extend it onto new device types. It also offers the memory monitor that I mentioned earlier. And if you're adding Google Play services or other types of Google services, this is the easiest way to set up the integration, so it's no hassle to add Google Analytics, Maps, or other capabilities. It also offers a nice, rich layout editor, so you can set up different themes and your apps will look much nicer by default. And it has a lot of quality improvement tools around usability issues, version compatibility, and stability. Cool, so definitely recommend you guys try that out too. I also wanted to mention Google Cloud Platform. Today all of our apps are definitely connected to back-end storage, and I wanted to tell you about this opportunity here. So whenever you're launching a new app, you want to be ready for big growth, but you probably don't have a huge budget to invest. So we have this thing that we call the Mobile Starter Kit. And what it allows you to do is to have a small financial investment, but then if your app goes really big, you'll be able to immediately take advantage of all of the best of Google's network. So super fast for performance, and it also supports cross-platform mobile apps as well as the web, so that you can use this across your entire offering. And Google Play Services launched 2 new functionalities earlier in the year. If you're not using it already, we want you to know that this is the best way to integrate any APIs from Google, whether that's the in-app billing API, Google Maps, or more. And the great thing about it too is that this is something that's kept up to date by Google on the user's device. So immediately, without having to integrate any new SDK, the new features are available across all of your users immediately. So the 2 new things that we announced this year are the Activity Recognition API can now recognize running and walking, so those of you with fitness apps might be able to make use of that. And we also announced Cloud Save. So a key user challenge is to make sure that when they have data in their app, they can expect it to be saved and made available across all of their devices, their phone, their tablet, maybe the web, maybe their watch. And the Cloud Save API makes this easy with no back-end programming. It also does a really good job of handling syncs when a user transitions between offline and online modes. So if you want to make sure your app works really well, definitely check that out. Okay, so we talked about how to bring quality and success to the development process, and now we're going to talk about the final stage, distribution, and how you can make sure that your app has maximum success on Play at this final step. So we talked already about beautiful material design and Play and how we've revamped the storefront. But rather than focusing on the visual aspects, now I want to talk about the functionality that this provides to you as a developer. So this store listing page on the Play Store is basically your shop window, and this is how people evaluate whether or not they want to install your app. And we've tried to make it optimized so it gives people a great experience, and also it gives you the opportunity to express your brand. So across the top, you see here there's a big banner graphic, and it can be really beautiful and express whatever you want about your app. If you haven't already, make sure you go to the developer console and provide that image. We also provide a short summary at the bottom where you can highlight some of the key things that your app provides, a summary of it in 1 or 2 sentences. And then in the middle of the page, we tell the user about different reasons to install their app, like the number of ratings that it has, if it's a high rating, a lot of installs, their friends have recommended it perhaps. And we're also thinking about other ways that maybe we can allow developers to share more in the Play Store. So one of the most important things that we hear developers talk about is app ratings. And we find in the Play Store that users use this as a huge tool for evaluating which app to install. If I'm picking between 2 different apps that do basically the same thing, the one with the better ratings will obviously get more traffic. So this is a great tool for making users compare the apps and pick your app favorably. So as you see the quality of your app increase, the ratings should increase as well. But in addition, there's actions that you can take as a developer to make sure that your ratings are even more successful and to also use this as an opportunity to reach out to your users. So you can go into the developer console today and reply to user comments. So what happens when you reply to one of these comments is that user receives an email message, unless they've opted out, and also your response is displayed in the Play Store. And what we found from a lot of developers who've been using this feature for the past couple years is they get great feedback from users. A user didn't expect to receive a response, but they're delighted when a developer says, hey, thanks for reporting that issue. We're going to fix it in the next version. And sometimes developers even find that users say, wow, you're right, you did actually fix my bug, or you explained to me how that feature in the store works, or feature in your app works. And so they'll actually go back and sometimes end up improving their review and improving their opinion over time. So now we're going to talk about why we launched beta testing and stage rollouts. So developers would often tell us that when you make your debut on the Play Store, it's critical to make sure that it's working great on day one. Otherwise, users will leave bad reviews, and it's hard to recover from that. So we wanted to make sure that you can integrate quality user feedback from the beginning. And so that when you make your debut, it's not the first time anyone's tried your app, but rather your app has been well tested throughout time. So we want you to first launch strong and then be able to keep your momentum going. We've been overwhelmed by the response to beta testing and stage rollout over the past year and a half. We've had now over 80,000 apps using these features, getting an average rating of 4.2 stars. And we've also seen that over 1/3 of our top apps are using beta testing today. And many of them are using staged rollouts too. So we're recommending beta testing and staged rollouts as a best practice for all developers. So let's go through each of these concepts and how you can apply them. So the purpose of beta testing is to be able to release your app just to a small select group of power users who you choose. So what this means is you can control the access, and you can also keep it private so that your super stealth app doesn't end up in the press before you expect it. And users who want to participate in beta tests need to opt in, and they're also blocked from leaving reviews so that you don't end up leaking any new features or end up with low reviews as a result of buggy beta software. We also now give you statistics so you can easily compare how your new beta and alpha versions are doing against your production versions. And so that way you can make sure that things are trending up and to the right over time. We found best practices from developers are to solicit as much user feedback as possible. Sometimes they do this within the app. Sometimes they use a Google group or a Google Plus community to get this feedback. But either way, we found the developers who are most open and responsive to this feedback end up with the best results. And some developers have also told us that they use this as an early preview to get metrics about how their users might perform on the app in production. Although you have to keep in mind that a group of power users may or may not represent your full user base. So after you've done an alpha test, a beta test, and you're feeling confident, you're able to release your app to production. And when you push new versions of your app to production, you're able to control the rollout to just a percentage of users. And these users are randomly selected, including both new users and existing users who might receive the stage rollout version. And stage rollouts are visible publicly, and users can also leave reviews. The purpose of a stage rollout is that you should already be pretty confident in what you're pushing, but it just gives you that extra level of safety where if something unexpected happens, like maybe a bug that didn't show up in earlier testing, then it doesn't impact all the users, and it ends up having a positive impact on reviews because you can catch this before it hits everybody. Okay, so as developers, we don't have a lot of time. And something that I hear frequently, time and time again, is, well, what should I focus on? There's like 100 things I can do. They all might improve my app, but I'm not really sure. We also want to go from offering a bunch of data to developers to offering clear, highly tailored insights, things that were going to help your app. So the idea behind optimization tips and alerts is to do exactly this. We offer a wide variety of optimization tips and alerts, so they cover everything from how to design your app for tablets, when and how to localize your app, and to make sure you're upgrading to the latest version of APIs like the in-app billing API. We also got some good feedback from developers earlier when we started offering alerts for when something goes wrong. So for example, maybe you pushed out a new version of your app, but actually the reviews are a lot worse than the old version. So we'll let you know. And developers told us, well, that's really helpful, but couldn't you just get that information to me as soon as possible? And so that's why this year we made it so that you can now sign up to receive these alerts via email, so that you find out right away and can fix the problem before more users have a bad experience. So once you understand kind of how your app is generally doing, you want to start looking inside your app and see what users are doing inside. And so Google Analytics is a really easy way to do this, and it also allows you to compare behavior and see how users move between the web and also different mobile apps, even on cross-platforms outside of Android. So Google Analytics is actually available through Google Play services. So this has a few benefits. First of all, you don't have to add another SDK to your APK and bloat its size. You only have to add a few lines of code. And it also comes for free if you're already using AdMob in your app. And so once you understand what users are doing inside your app, the next step is to start running experiments to see how you can get users to engage more, spend more, and have more fun. So Google Tag Manager is an easy way of running experiments, and it integrates with Google Analytics. So the idea is that you set up a goal, like maybe the amount of money that a user spends, or maybe the amount of time that a user spends in an app, or the number of videos watched. And then you set up multiple versions of your app. Maybe one version has a blue background, one has a red background. Or maybe it's more sophisticated than that. And then you say, optimize these different versions towards the goal. So over time, it'll run these different versions, see what the user behavior is towards the goal, and automatically move users over to whatever version ends up winning. So it's a really easy way to make sure that you have an optimal experience inside your app. So another question we get from developers a lot is, how can I understand the whole conversion funnel? You know, if I'm running a particular marketing campaign, how do I understand how many people are looking at my app in the Play Store, how many people are installing it, and then how many people are actually running it? So last year, we announced the Google Play Referral Flow Report. This is available in Google Analytics. And so it helps you do exactly that. And the purpose here is to be able to understand which user acquisition channels, like maybe which ad campaigns or other things, are most effective. Because again, you might have some installs happening, but you really care about which users go on to become users of the app. So we've seen now, as developers are becoming more sophisticated, and how the currency of apps is really engagement over the long term rather than just a one-time install. Developers are focusing more on tracking the most meaningful segments of users, you know, whatever users are most engaged with their business. So for example, if I had a game, I would be able to use Google Analytics to track user segments to maybe say, let me look at users who came in through a certain campaign. Maybe they've gotten to level 7 in my game, and they've spent more than $5. Okay. And then, one of the things we've seen on businesses is that more and more developers are running hugely successful, very profitable businesses on Play. And we're trying to do everything that we can to scale their expertise to everybody, and to make it easier to measure your businesses, whether you're a small startup or a much larger company with a dedicated analytics team. So we offer the Google Play Revenue Report, which offers not only your total revenue, but has been recently updated to include the average revenue per paying user, the number of buyers, and you can even see easy breakdowns by different countries, so you can see how your business is growing into each of those different markets. In response to feedback from a bunch of our developers who had a lot of apps or published their apps in a lot of countries, we're also offering the Developer Publishing API. So if you're a developer with, let's say, 100 apps, and each of those apps is offered in 50 languages, and you've uploaded all of the text and all of the tablet screenshots and all of the banners for all of those different languages, it becomes kind of a multiplicative problem. And so we thought we can do better than that. So we now have an API that you can use to manage your APKs, the text for your store listing, the graphics for your store listing, and you can also manage your in-app product catalog and alpha and beta tests. You're able to integrate this with whatever build system that your company has, so that you can take those assets directly from where they are already on your servers and in your development process and to push them directly into the developer console and into Google Play without a bunch of copy and paste. So if you have a really big operation like this, we definitely recommend that you check this out. Although we definitely want to see you coming back to the developer console to get a lot more of the analytics and insights and see how your app is doing. Okay, so today, we had an overview of how we can make our app more successful and how to build high quality across all the different stages of the software development process. So in the area of design, we looked into material design and how to adapt to new devices. We looked then at development. We talked about how the L release offers some new beautiful experiences for users and what you'll need to do to update your app to make it ready for L. There's new tools available in Android Studio to help you do that. And also, if you're looking at building a lot of success in emerging markets, Android One and network and battery optimizations are a great way to go. And then finally, we looked at how you can make sure that your app is high quality as you get started in distribution through beta testing and staged rollouts. And then we also looked at how to bring more analytics and insight into your users through the optimization tips and Google Analytics integration. So I hope that this will be a good day for you as we go on into later sessions to understand more about business and localization. Thanks again for being part of Google Play. You know, when someone gets a new device, yes, they want to have a device, but what they really are looking for is great software, great apps that really bring the device to life. So thanks again for building such fantastic, beautiful, high-quality apps, and we wish you luck with material design and the L and all the next chapters on Play. Thanks.